and we're good to go on my end whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Tim Voss, and I'm the chair of the Historic Conservation Board. I'd like to take a minute to remind everyone about the rules of this proceeding. This meeting is at all times governed by the rules of procedure, a copy of which is available online. All those planning to testify today, which does not include those solely making arguments such as attorneys, will be asked to take an oath administered by the board's attorney when they testify. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. As such, the board reserves the right to deliberate in private. The Ohio Rules of Evidence do not apply to this hearing. However, professional rules of conduct do apply, and candor to the tribunal is required. The board members are citizen volunteers and are not paid for their service. They are treated as public officials under Ohio law, and any attempt to influence them, including but not limited to bribery, intimidation, retaliation, which may include contacting their employer in an attempt to exert influence, is punishable as a crime. All should be aware that this meeting is being tape recorded. Therefore, please speak clearly into the microphone and state your name and address for the record. In the event of any technical difficulties with the video conferencing technology, I may continue or postpone this hearing at my discretion. All participants providing testimony must have both camera and audio features turned on in order to participate. With that said, let's proceed with the first item. Mr. Owen, 1508 Pleasant Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness at 1508 Pleasant Street in the Over the Rhine Historic District. This is a certificate of appropriateness only. There's no zoning relief required for the proposal. The applicant is proposing to add a roof deck to the front slope of the existing building, and as well as adding side decks on the interior side of the building. So you can see on the screen here, the roof plan shows the location of the proposed roof deck, and the roof deck will require raising the roof in order to provide access to the exterior space. The applicant is proposing doing that through a roof dormer that will be set back from the front facade, leaving the side walls of the existing building intact, as well as the roof line along the edges, with that roof dormer set back several feet on each side of the roof. So the sight line shows that this dormer addition will not be visible from the street. And the other decks are going to be on the side of the structure here and here. There is visibility through the side next to the building, so at least the rear deck will be minimally visible from the street. However, when looking straight on, you won't see either deck. And you can see those decks on the side elevation drawing. There's one on each, or two decks on the second floor and 2 decks on the third floor. So that being said, staff does recommend approval of the certificate of appropriateness for 1508 Pleasant Street per plans by Wichman Gunther Architects dated 6/24/22, including a revision submitted for permit subject to staff review and approval, with the condition that the rear deck shall be stained or painted after construction, and that the building permits must be issued within 2 years or the COA shall expire.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gunther, do you have anything you'd like to add that Mr. Owen hasn't told us?
No, sir. I think this is pretty straightforward, hopefully.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant or staff from the board? Absent that, I will entertain a motion.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness as laid out by staff.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Zelasco,
Aye.
Mr. Weiss,
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman,
Aye.
the chair votes aye. Item number 1, 1508 Pleasant Street is approved. Item number 2, 214 Mulberry Street. Mr. Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the resubmittal of the application that was continued from the last hearing. It's for 214 to 218 Mulberry Street in the Over the Rhine Historic District. It's also within a hillside overlay. The applicant did take the considerations of the board's concerns into account and has revised their initial submittal to address those concerns. So I'll go through each of the changes that were made, but before I get there, on the zoning relief that is requested, the changes that have been made have altered some of the zoning relief, namely the previous request of number 6 for parking lot screening, a special exception to eliminate the screening requirements on the west side of Site Street. That has been eliminated because the applicant is now proposing a 4-foot screen fence along the side to screen that parking lot from the west on sites. And also regarding the parking, a variance is now required for a 2-space parking variance with the 10-unit building. They are required to have 10 parking spaces because this property is just outside the urban parking overlay. With the concerns that were mentioned previously about the visibility of the parking on the site, the applicant has decided to eliminate the previous parking pad that was on the Mulberry Street side. And that did include the large 8-foot retaining walls that were built into the hill to support that parking pad. That has been eliminated, and that grassy slope will remain as it currently is. So because that parking pad was eliminated, they are now 2 spaces short of parking. They have 8 spaces proposed where the requirement is 10. So I would also mention that eliminating that parking pad on the side has also allowed them to retain the 2 street parking spaces that were along Mulberry in this area. So they are eliminating the 2 off-street spaces, but they will be able to gain back the 2 on-street parking spaces that were previously proposed to be removed. So you can see on the elevation drawings, the screen fence that is along the west side of the site's parking lot that will provide the screening. That is an aluminum fence that is black to help sort of blend in to the background. And you can see on the Mulberry Street that parking pad is gone. So in addition to the changes to the parking, the other main changes include facing the previously proposed poured concrete stone foundation with a stone veneer. The applicant has also provided an example of the stone that they would like to use. And I can pull that up here in a minute. So that brick or that stone cladding will wrap around onto the side elevation as well. The concrete notation that's called out on here was left over from the previous submittal, so that is inaccurate. This will be faced with that same stone material as the foundation steps into the hillside on the side. An additional concern from the board was the lack of a defined top on the buildings. So the applicant has elected to place a soldier course below the existing or the previously proposed metal coping along the top of the Mulberry frontage. And then on the site's frontage, they have placed a fiber cement freeze board below that metal coping to help further define that top that provides a much stronger end to the building. And then the other major change to the building is on the west elevation. They had previously proposed a narrow brick return coming onto the west elevation. That is now proposed to have brick going all the way back along that Mulberry block with the soldier course repeated along the top. And then on the sites block, the applicant has added additional window openings to break up that large expanse of unrelieved wall. So staff does feel that the changes that they have made have greatly improved the project, and we are supportive of those changes. quickly. I can pull up the sorry, I don't have the proposed stone in here. If you'd like to see that, I can get that pulled out of my email.
The stone is subject to staff's final approval,
That was the initial recommendation, yes. So,
and I don't know that I need to see it. It might be a moving target. We have confidence that you will, so I don't know that we need to wait on that.
okay. I'm sorry, I don't know, was I not sharing my screen previously?
No.
I
No,
apologize.
you were not.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. So you can see the drawings here. And you did have this all in your packet. So if there's anything you'd like to see in further detail, feel free to let me know and I can pull that up.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
I'm sorry, while we're talking about the facade, they're looking at Site Street. What are you calling the base of this thing?
On Site Street, the base is basically the first floor level.
Below the entry door? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, generally, in residential construction, the base is often not highly differentiated from the middle of a building. So on this, yeah, the slightly raised foundation and the first story would be considered to be the base, with
Okay,
the middle above and then the top above the second floor.
thank you.
So staff does recommend approval of the zoning relief. That would be approval of the hillside front yard for a 3.5 foot setback, approval of the hillside front height for a 5.67 foot extension above the limit. Staff recommends approval of the retaining wall height for a 10.5 foot retaining wall. Staff recommends approval of the excavation and fill for a total cumulative amount of 31.5 feet. Staff recommends approval of the special exception for parking in the front yard along Site Street. And staff recommends approval of the special exception to eliminate the required 3-foot landscape buffer along the west side of the site's parking lot. The new relief, staff does recommend approval of the numerical variance of 2 for the proposed 8 parking spaces. And then staff does recommend approval of the certificate of appropriateness with the condition that the Department of Transportation and Engineering approves the curb cuts and access to the property, as well as the balcony projections into the right of way. The building permits must be issued within 2 years of the decision date, or the COA shall expire, and the specific stone cladding material on the foundation shall be subject to approval by staff.
Thank you. All right. Sorry, I got to bounce back because I haven't printed that. Is it Mr. Yokel who's going to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Tyler and Will.
I'm sorry.
Could each,
Tyler Watkins is here.
could Tyler and Will both raise their right hand? Each answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Doug. I think you hit on most every item that we revised from our last conversation. I do recall, though, the western neighbor had some just blanket concerns about there being a lack of detail on the facade to the west. Will and I convened, and we did add a couple of windows to that facade as well. So just something else to point out. Another very, very subtle revision is there were some coping elements at the top of the gray central band that subdivides the 2 vertical volumes along Mulberry and on the back at sites. And Will and I decided to lighten the color of the coping at that, just to do more to draw your eye away from that central band and to sell the idea of more verticality within the keeping of the pattern on the street.
All right. What else do you have?
I just wanted to thank you for your comments and guidance last hearing. I think we positively addressed all the items that were turned and agree that we now have a better project because of it. So thank you. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right. I'm sorry, I'm not bringing up my signing list. Who else has signed up to speak? Cassandra, am I missing someone?
I have Danny Lipsum. I think
Danny
was-
just had to sign off.
Okay,
And I don't think Greg Olson is here either.
No.
That was the only other person.
now questions, comments from the staff or from the board for staff or the applicant?
I don't know, Mr. Chair, I'm still, I think I can decide here in the next 60 seconds, but this base top thing, this design is, and I want to say I appreciate all the work the designer and the owner has done to address our concerns. I still feel this is, if I approve it, it's probably about at the limits of what I think is acceptable. And I appreciate your comments, Doug, about residential bases tend to not be so predominant. Anyways, just my comments.
No, I don't disagree. I particularly appreciate the attention to the west side, so it doesn't look like, hey, we got finished and we just threw something on one side of the building. I also, just from a general appearance, the practical application is you'll probably end up with one parking spot on the street in front of the two that were off street. But I think it gives it a much more logical look. But I'm right there with Mr. Zelasco. I'm inclined to support this, but this is as far out as I think I could go. There are a number of issues that still sort of jar me. The way the balconies work, I understand why, as a property owner, you want them, but they just seem not appropriate from a historic perspective. And whereas I understand we're supposed to differentiate between a new build and historic, this one sort of takes that to its, I don't want to say illogical, but it certainly takes it to the border of not marrying in. But I think at the end of, as I looked at it, I thought, okay, this one has come far enough that I can, with significant reservations, support it.
Doug, are you able to pull up the image of the old incline in our packet?
Yeah, let me find.
Tim, I just wanted to show you a picture of what that Main Street step looked like with the incline there and some of the buildings that were on the west.
Oh, I understand.
Okay.
Again, I appreciate, I need all the education I can get. I don't claim to, as I say,
Doug, if
I
you're able to zoom in on that,
understand that there's at least some precedent for this.
on the first photo on the left. That's a brick building there. We have the balcony in the front. And then as you kind of step up the site, you have all these side balconies. So we were, in a temporary way, we were trying to be able to pull back and the idea of that front balcony, some of the side balcony, and the fire escapes that you tend to see all over the Rhine, kind of a temporary play on that, I guess.
I understand the homage, and I'm not, as I say, I'm, whereas I was all the way over the line before, I'm on the other side of the line this time, but I'm also looking at this going, man, this one, it looks, it's borderline out of place, but you've done enough that I can I can say, okay. I think it's a great use of the space. I think there's some really cool things to it. And because of the changes that you have done, I think it will marry well into the neighborhood. So that was the extent of my observation, sort of parroting off of Mr. Zelasco. That, you know, I will support it, but more an instructive note to staff. That this is this far and no further, I guess, is the my take on this. Other questions or comments?
I'll just, Tyler Watkins here. I'll just add a little flavor in seeing what Will ask us to take a look at the view from someone, a pedestrian who might be walking up the incline. He and I have discussed this. I won't illustrate this as a hardship, but I'd say it's a unique property with a unique set of circumstances that we've essentially had to design a building that has 4 fronts to it that has created for us some obstacles in just the scale of what we're allowed, what we can afford to do, and what is appropriate for this development. And I feel confident that and proud of what my office has put together, and I do think it looks like a nice new building in a historic neighborhood.
Okay, other questions or comments from the board? Absent that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve both the zoning relief and the certificate of appropriateness.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Zelasco,
Aye.
Mr. Weiss,
Aye. Mr.
Sunderman.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Item number 2 is approved. Good luck. I appreciate all the challenges you faced with this, and I hope it'll be as lovely an addition as you think it will be. All right. Do we need to make a motion on number 3 to continue, or is it just continued?
Were you gonna answer, Cassandra?
Oh, I didn't know if you wanted me to. No, we should just not have any action on it. And I've notified all parties and we'll regroup on the 26th.
All right, so we will take no action on 1601 Blue Rock Street, and it'll come back up on the 26th. All right. Mr. Owen, do we have any other business today?
No, we do not.
Mr. Chair,
All
I
right.
do have a quick announcement. If that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so we, on Friday, there was an appointment to fill the vacancy left by Mr. Seamer when he left the board. And so we officially now have a new HCB member. His name is John Young, Y-U-N-G. He's a certified planner at a local firm. So he will be joining us soon. We're touching base with him this week and going to start helping him with onboarding. So I'm not sure exactly what the date of his first meeting will be, but he should be joining us shortly. I'll be sure to make sure that I give him your information and vice versa. By yours, I mean all the board members, so that if he has questions or wants to introduce himself, he can do that.
That's excellent news. Glad to have hopefully it'll prevent things like Blue Rock where we can't have a quorum. But also it's nice to have a full group for the board. All right, well, we'll look forward to Mr. Young. Anything else we have to go over? If not, I will move that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.